One of the most impactful and dramatic responses to the virus has been the closing of most schools across the country. It has left millions of parents scrambling for childcare help. Many daycares, however, are still operating. Fox News correspondent Doug McKelway has the details.
Nearly 39 million public school students in 38 states, Puerto Rico and D.C., are staying home as schools temporarily close their doors. New York City public schools, the largest in the nation, recently joined that growing list.
I know all of the negative ramifications of this decision, and it's very painful.
It includes continuing to provide food for the millions of students nationwide who qualify for free or reduced price meals.
Turkey ham.
In Fairfax County, Virginia, where 50,000 students use the program, staffers today provided cold sandwiches outside locked doorways.
We want to be able to provide for those families and provide meals for those families and children during this time.
Unlike schools, many daycare centers are choosing to remain open. 7.5 million U.S. children are enrolled in daycare centers. Most of them are keeping their doors open despite bans on public gatherings, something the coronavirus task force seemed surprised by during Monday's briefing.
Considering that children can sometimes be asymptomatic carriers and go home to older individuals, are there any recommendations about daycare settings?
I think it's very important. We should probably, if we have not discussed that, go back and discuss that in some detail.
Governors have also been hesitant to issue orders that would close daycare centers. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine initially urged daycares to remain open, noting many healthcare workers have small children. He tweeted, "Our healthcare system needs to be staffed. You'll start seeing healthcare facilities creating their own daycares. To close daycares overnight won't work, but it's coming." Maryland Governor Larry Hogan recently expanded access to child care services for first responders and healthcare workers by suspending regulations. For now, Maryland daycares are able to stay open at their own discretion. That is not without risk. A 2004 NIH study found that children account for most of the 21 million respiratory infections in an average year. With COVID-19, they can become silent carriers who pose a risk to older adults they come into contact with. In Washington, Doug McKelway, Fox News.